Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Biters Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things Walking Dead and zombies, brought to you by Southgate Media. My name is Jeff Marsick. I am a screenwriter and writer of the comic book Z-Girl and the Four Tigers. And with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow collaborator on Z-Girl, Kirk Manley. Kirk, say hi.
What's up? Let's talk some Walking Dead.
That's right. And, Kirk and I had this discussion before we started about spoilers and being cognizant of people who have read the comic book or seen the show. For when it comes to the show, specifically episode 4 that was on yesterday or last night, if you haven't seen the show, just stop listening right now, okay? Because we have a format that we go with, good, bad, and the ugly, and we're going to bypass all of that today and just go right into the meat of last night's episode. So if you haven't caught up, stop now, come back after you download us and leave, on iTunes or on Facebook. Okay, that said, if you're still listening...
Well, but also in terms of the comic book, we're going to... We often, as we have in previous episodes, related... actions and events in the TV show to the comic book, make predictions of how the TV show will be similar or dissimilar to the comic, and in doing that, obviously, we will be spoiling very often with regards to the comic book up to where they are now.
Which you've got to keep in mind in the right. Scheme of comic books, we're talking about events that happened 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
Think the prison was at least half a dozen or more trades ago.
Right. So when we talk about the comic, we're not spoiling anything that came out last week or within the last 6 months. We're talking ancient history.
Well, we just wanted listeners to know that if that is a concern, we don't really have a format for being able to alert you guys and have that be easy to skip away from. So just be forewarned that we may discuss aspects of the comic up to or around where they are in the similar storyline in the TV show, and that if you don't want to be spoiled with that, then you might not want to listen.
But we'll do our best to alert you beforehand.
Yes.
Sometimes Kirk and I both suffer from early onset Alzheimer's, so sometimes that gets by us.
Who are you? What am I doing here? Okay,
all right.
Let's go. Let's do this.
All right, let's get to the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Let's just forget our normal format of good, bad, and the ugly and just go right to it. The end of the show. Rick banishes Carol. Now, there were a lot of we talked about how the first 3 episodes we've really liked Carol. We've really liked Rick, actually. We've liked the development of both of them. Carol's become such a strong character, and the revelation of last episode was that who got killed with Karen and David.
David, right.
Rick figures out that it was Carol who killed David and Karen, killed them first, dragged them out in the courtyard, doused them with gasoline, and lit them up. Tyrese wanted blood, and it's kind of set Tyrese off his little off his deep end. And Rick confronts Carol at the end of the last episode, says, "Did you kill Karen and David?" And she just looks at him, expressionless, and says, "Yes." And we speculated on how that's going to play out. Well, it played out in this episode. And I have to say, I'm taking the stand that I thought that was the most ridiculous thing that happened.
Ridiculous? Yeah, ridiculous in what way? What do you mean?
Okay.
Ridiculous for Rick to handle it that way, or ridiculous that the show chose to do that, or what? Be more specific.
Okay. Counselor. Throughout this episode, we've seen Rick slides back into old moody Rick again, and he doesn't say a word to Carol. They're driving along. They get in a car. They drive in the I love the product placement too. The Hyundai that they get into.
The Hyundai is featured every freaking week, and it's always like spotless. Like they took it to the car wash.
Yeah,
let's hit the car wash on our way out to get stuff in the zombie apocalypse.
So we've got
and yet Daryl, poor Daryl, he's always in a car that looks like it's beat to shit. And got dirt all over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It breaks down. You know what I mean?
He's got to go put water in a battery in order to jump the car. And so Daryl, Michonne, Tyrese, and Bob are there. They got swamped by a herd last week, and so they're on the run trying to find a new vehicle so they can get back to the prison. And while they're gone, they're late in returning. Rick steps out, goes out in the Super Hyundai with Carol, and they're going to go pillage a neighborhood. And they get to the neighborhood, and along the drive, there's no talking between us. It's very uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable to just watch that scene because there's just no talking. Right. Carol broaches in the car about, okay, can we talk about this kind of thing? And Carol says, that's what she had to do. And Rick doesn't put up an argument. He just kind of sits there and just kind of nods his head. Okay. They go to a house. They meet a couple kids who we'll talk about in a minute. And, these kids have been living on their own for a little bit, separated from their group. Carol tends to one of them. And I knew there was the gorilla in the room between Carol and Rick. But I thought that when she sets this kid had a dislocated arm. Sam's his name. Yeah. His shoulder was dislocated, and she sets it. And there's just something in Rick's eyes when he watches this. I kind of took it to be like, I took it to be that it was kind of tempering any angst or anger that he had towards Carol. And I was wrong. So,
but isn't that good? I think that's good story writing, right? You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know how to interpret his reactions or what she was doing, He wouldn't do anything bad to Carol. Look, she's such a great person,
Right. And when they're pillaging one of the rooms for everything, they finally have it out. They have this talk back and forth, and Carol's basically justifying what she does or what she did. She draws a parallel to what Rick did with Shane. Right. Well, you killed Shane, and Rick says, well, he was going to kill me, and Carol says, well, so were they.
Right.
And Rick says, well, you don't know that.
Right.
And so they have this little back and forth, and it was really interesting. I thought that was a really good scene. You can kind of see both their points.
Right. Right.
I find myself watching the show, and when she says, well, you were going to kill Shane, I was like, ooh, she's right. And then he says, well, he was going to kill him. Ooh, he's right. I was like talking to the TV. But then when we come back from commercial break, I think when we came back, right? And they're loading up the Super Hyundai. Well, no, it's other things happen along the way, but at some point
they're supposed to meet the couple that they found 2 hours after they all went searching for stuff, and they're waiting, and they know that the girl's dead. They saw
they found the girl in pieces,
but the guy, they don't know if he's made it or will return or not. And go ahead.
And I thought that was a good scene too. They're sitting in this house and they're waiting for Sam to come back. The 2-hour deadline's come and gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Carol's the one who makes the hard decision. Rick's like, we should stay a little bit, give him a little bit longer. And she's like, no, that's the time we need to go. And I love that. I mean, that was, then they go out.
So where's the ridiculous part?
Okay, so the ridiculous part comes when they get out to the car and they're loading up the Super Hyundai, and she goes to get in the car and the door's locked. And then Rick goes sanctimonious and selfish on her and is basically like, he says to her, or maybe it said earlier, Tyrese will kill you if he finds out. And she says, well, I can handle Tyrese, which I agree with because, again, we talked about last episode, the talk between, the interaction between Tyrese and her. She said, well, I can handle Tyrese. And Rick basically just goes on this path where he's acting unilaterally. He's supposed to be on the council, right? He's acting unilaterally, and he sums it all up when he says, "I'm making this decision for me." So in his head, just because he doesn't trust Carol now, or he's got reservations about her, the new, I'll call her Carol 4.0 because this is season 4, and she's distinctly different from prior season.
Right.
Carol 4.0 is a little too, she's a little too, too strong for him, I think. And that makes him nervous. So he basically just chucks her bag to the curb and is like, "Yep, you'll do fine out here on your own. You're not the old Carol. You're not the squeamish Carol. You're strong Carol now. You'll be okay." And I love how Carol just looks at him and she just goes, "Nobody has to know about this." And Rick, who has been a farmer for 4 episodes now, or 3.5 episodes now, suddenly is like the team leader, and he's going to kick her out. Where's the council? Where's getting everybody together and like, all right, let's make a decision. If you want to rat her out to everybody, fine. But you've been with her from the beginning. She's not Bob. She's not Tyrese. You have a bond with this woman. You've been through a lot with her, and you're just going to throw her out like that? I was torqued. Your witness.
Well, I totally understand. And I think that your reaction is exactly what the writers were trying to accomplish, or at least 50% of what they're trying to accomplish. I think what they did is present a conflict that was gray. You know, what Carol did, she does make a good case for. But it's also, and part of you, like yourself, and part of me was like, yeah, I mean, you know, she's probably saved the group and everything. But it didn't, obviously, because it spread. But, you know, at the time, she didn't know them. But at the same time, you know, I think what Rick, you know, feels that he can't go back and lie to the community. He's got to go back and he's got to tell them what he discovered. I mean, he made a promise to Tyrese. And
he can do that.
And he's a policeman, and he's have to do that. And I think he feels that, you know, the better solution is for her to move on for a couple reasons. And one is that I think she's been making tough decisions this season, Carol 4.0. But I think it's deeper than that. And Carol 4.0 is not just more sure of herself and better at decision making. She's become colder and colder and less human and less and more almost sociopathic in her detachment from her emotions, in that everything for her is about survival. And I think the whole lecture that she's giving Izzy in the very beginning, when we're seeing Rick preparing the car and everything for the trip, and then did you notice the gas can is empty, so he has to go and get the gas can that she used to burn those people with, and that brings him back to the crime scene and brings him through the whole thing again while she's in the over top. He's not saying anything through any of this. Over the top, you're hearing her telling Izzy about, you know, that you have to, you basically have to become this uncaring, cold killing machine in this new paradigm to survive, and that's the most important thing. And the show has been dealing with this season between Herschel and Carol, and now Rick and Carol, you know, the different approaches to life in this apocalyptic setting. You know, are you going to give up your humanity and just do what you need to do to survive, a la Shane? I mean, essentially Carol's becoming cold and calculating and detached. She even says to Izzy, "Don't call me mother." You know, she doesn't want any emotional attachment to anything. She just wants to be able to call the shot she needs to call. I mean, here she helped this guy out on the table in the earlier scene that you're describing, but then she says to Rick, you know, "Hey, 2 hours. He's not here. Psh, let's go."
Yeah, but also remember.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What?
No. I was just gonna say, but also remember earlier in that scene when they first meet the kids, and I want to talk about this in a couple minutes as well. When they meet the kids and Rick is detached and, you know, like everybody they meet, "Hey, where are you from? You guys look like you're well fed. Where's your people? Where's your place?" Right. And Rick kind of, you know, gets his typical, you know, the barriers go up and stuff. And Carol's the one who says, "Hey, you know what? You can help us raid the houses and bring stuff in." So,
which ultimately leads to the death.
Right.
If they had done what Rick suggested, which was to stay there, stay put, stay safe, while they go out, do the searching because they know what they're doing, everybody'd be back at the prison now. Or at least the three of them would be.
Well, at least 3 of them.
Right, exactly. But still, to finish my point, I don't want to ramble, but I think that, you know, she's becoming unpredictable in his eyes. He doesn't feel safe with her. And he says, even if the prison were to fall apart and it was you with me and my children, you wouldn't be there. I wouldn't have you there, because he doesn't feel safe with her. He feels, she's going to do whatever. If she were to think, for instance, like whatever Carl did was wrong and that, she needed to get rid of Carl to save the group, boom, she'd get rid of Carl. There is nothing that will ever make Rick get rid of Carl. He's going to go to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Rick is about protecting his family. And that became clear in that statement, you know what I mean? But I think he's also grappling with this concern to try and maintain some sort of morality or some sort of humanity, just like Herschel is. And Carol has given up on that. And that scares him, I think. But he also saves her life, because I do think Tyrese would kill her. At least the Tyrese that left to go on that journey. The one coming back might be different. We can talk about why some of the things that happened in that journey this week that maybe is toning him down or finally getting him under control, or he's getting himself under control. But, when he left, and that's what we have to think about, because that's what they know, that's where they think he's at. You know what I mean? That's where he is in their mind. I agree with that. I think that, he'd go and he'd kill her. Eye for an eye. He wanted justice. And, so in some ways he's saving her life by letting her go because of all that they've been through. But he also knows that if she comes back, he's got to tell, it's going to divide the prison. You're going to have Tyrese in his mind, Tyrese's going to try and kill her. It's going to be, you're going to have people who are going to side with Carol. You're going to have people who are going to side with, with Tyrese. And it's just going to be a disaster. And most likely she's going to pay the price. So in this way, he's kind of giving her a chance. But I don't think that's his main motivation. I think his main motivation is that she's become somebody he doesn't feel he can trust and he's scared of. So why I think that's awesome is because they both had valid points, like just as you pointed out, about what they did and why they're doing it. But it's hard to, it's hard to take any one position. Personally, I don't agree with what he did. I think he should bring her back, because he was the one that's put in motion this whole thing about a democracy now, not a dictatorship, and that and we've seen that there's a council, and he should come back and he should let the community decide. But that's my personal opinion.
Right, and that's the crux of the whole issue. Look, I get if you're not comfortable with Carol, that she skeeves me out. I'm not comfortable with her. I totally get that, and there's going to be characters that are like that. It's not his decision to come out and say, all right, you're not coming back, because now you know what. Everybody who goes out, and someone should make a line of this at some point, somewhere down the line. You go out with Rick, you may not be coming back.
Right.
And there's there was an interesting plot twist, a plot point in American Horror Story last week, when one character is asked, why did you do, who, one of the characters gets his tongue cut out, and the question is he's asked by somebody, who cut your tongue out? And the plot twist to that was interesting, and I saw kind of like an echo of that in this show, in this episode, where I basically sat back, and the more I put this theme through my head and run it around and around it again, Rick's the one who's responsible for Karen and David dying. Okay, and here's why. She says it with one of the quotes she says to him in the house when Carol says to him, "You can be a farmer, Rick. You can't be just a farmer." Okay. Later on at the Super Hyundai, when they're out there, she makes mention. She says, "I stepped up." Okay, when she's defending what she did, meaning that Rick's been off the grid. He's been in this void. We can argue it all you want. I think he's a horrible leader. I think he's been a horrible leader since the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. The paradigm in the show is that he's the leader everybody looks up to. Great. He's been absent for however many months. He's been absent all season. Herschel's tried to, kickstart him. We keep thinking that certain elements are going to happen that are going to push him back into that leadership role. And So in this void, we've seen Daryl step up. We've seen Carol step up. I think, and going back to what you were saying about her being borderline sociopathic and Rick's trying to, he's always trying to find the peace in life, trying to find the zen in life as opposed to all the violence and stuff. Carol's the realist and Rick's living in some kind of fantasy world. He's trying to, and I don't think that, I didn't take her discussion with Lizzie in the beginning, which was a fantastic opening, by the way. Just the way they cut between Rick visualizing the murder and Carol talking to Lizzie. And I got to call him out. Bear McCreary, the music that he for the show.
That was good.
It was a fantastic thing. I didn't take it as her pushing her sociopathy, if that's the word, her sociopathic method on Lizzie. But the quote is that we all change. We all don't get to stay the way we started, which, is the overarching theme, one of the overarching themes of this entire series.
But how do you, the question is, absolutely, but the question is, how do you change? And what do you give up? And what do you keep? And that's what I think they're trying to have us as viewers squabble with or grapple with as we watch the show. Do you become cold, calculating, detached, and make, the logical decisions, bang, 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 a la Shane, a la the governor, now a la Carol, or do you try to maintain some sense of humanity and maybe sacrifice yourself for the greater good, like Herschel, does. And I think that's the two sides of the argument. I don't think they're necessarily saying one is right or one is wrong.
Right.
Definitely Rick is a failed leader and, but he's a human being and he's made a lot of mistakes. But, and this may be one of them. But from a storytelling point of view, I thought it was fantastic because I think it made us feel one way or the other or torn between the two or felt that we could understand both arguments and made it a hard decision even as us as a viewer. And then secondly, this sets up such an incredible dynamic for the coming episodes. I mean, what the hell? When Daryl gets back and finds out that Carol's gone and that Rick has taken her out, I mean, he's going to lose his mind. You know what I mean? And I just think, I wouldn't be surprised if like Tyrese comes back and says, oh my God, she was just trying to do what she thought was right. I wouldn't have felt that, and then so now they go out and try and find her. You know what I mean? It's just like they're going to be pissed at Rick. It's like,
that's the thing is, I think you gave Rick far too much credit for foresight. In 4 seasons, he's never shown any semblance of foresight.
The
foresight about the foresight about how
what's going to happen when she goes back.
Yeah, the conflict back at the prison.
He says it himself. He says, if we take you back, I've got to tell them, and if I tell them, Teresa's going to kill you.
And she says, "I can handle Tyrese."
Yeah,
but the thing is that,
but he doesn't think that. He thinks
it doesn't matter what he thinks. It's a council.
Because he's the one we're talking about. He's the one making the decision to leave her.
Right.
And
it was completely selfish.
Understand his logic.
Right. It was completely selfish. It was just all of his. If he believed in the council, if he was a good leader, there's nothing wrong with going back and saying, "Hey, Carol did it. Now let's talk about it." There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think he's going to be.
Actually, it's funny in some ways. Now that we're talking about it, they both are very similar, and they're both making very similar decisions. She made a selfish decision and took kind of her own opinion about what was going to happen with those two people when she didn't know for sure, and chose to kill them. And he is assuming that, X, Y, and Z is going to happen if he brings her back. And, I think he said to her he's worried about Tyrese trying to kill her, but I think he's also worried about it undermining the entire prison and splitting it up into two divisions, And,
right.
But that's him making a choice by himself, about the group, which is what she did. I mean, he essentially is doing to her now what she did to Karen. And I just from a writing point of view, I just think that's I think that's very cool.
I think that this is an example where there's not much difference. The governor and Rick are two sides of the same coin.
I think Carol and the governor are two sides of the same coin.
Where do you think Carol goes from here?
Well, it's interesting because I wrote down a couple of speculations, of predictions.
Are these yours, or did you find these online?
No. These are ones I came up with. I think it's a real good possibility that Daryl will go out looking for her.
Which would be interesting because he's been busting on the show.
Bingo.
That's a good one.
It's going to be a flip-flop. I mean, here he's finally convinced Michonne to stop trying to, go after the governor and keep searching out there. And now he's going to be out looking for Carol and doing the exact same thing. Exactly. I agree. The other is that I think Tyrese, like I mentioned, may end up feeling guilty. May feel like, he could have forgiven her. And so then he feels responsible. Maybe he and Daryl go out to try and find her, which would set up an interesting thing if they encounter the governor. Yeah. I think it's possible Carol will meet up with Sam, the guy that they met who didn't show up at the 2 hours.
Okay.
And they might join up. She may end up being the one, and again, here's a spoiler for the comic book. She may be the one that the governor catches and brings to the gate, a la the comic book. Instead of Tyrese, and beheads her. You know what I mean? Says, give up the prison or I'm going to kill her, and they don't, and he kills her. And then starts the whole thing.
So that would be awesome, because then that's even more, that's another 800-pound stone on Rick's soul.
Oh, absolutely. This whole show is about piling stones on Rick's soul. There's no doubt about it, I mean, that's what it's about for sure. But I think I think she's definitely going to die. I think that's not the last we've seen of her, but I think this is her season. Like last season was Andrea's season. I think this is Carol's season. By the end of it, I think she's going to come back in, but I think she'll die.
Okay, start cueing the internet trolls. Walking Dead hates female characters.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of guys dying in between, I'm sure. Yeah, the whole sequence in the beginning was fantastic, with the juxtaposition of Carol talking to Liza and Rick. We talked about that. Oh, the name of the episode is Indifference.
Right.
And I can't help but see Carol throughout the whole episode is indifferent to what she does to survive. Hence the title episode. That's how I read the episode. That's how I choose to interpret the episode. She's indifferent to the guy that they find, and when he's not showing up at time, and she's like, look, we got to go, man. Forget about him, She's indifferent to the death of the young girl that they find. When they find that girl,
yep.
I mean, Rick is mortified, and she's like, no, well, this is what happens in the apocalypse. She's indifferent to how Tyrese will feel when he finds out she killed Karen. Oh, I can handle Tyrese.
Right.
That's totally, again, indifferent. She's even indifferent to being cast out at the end. She doesn't fight with Rick. She doesn't plead with Rick. She doesn't threaten Rick. She just kind of accepts this is.
And that's one thing that I've been wrestling with ever since last night, whether that pisses me off or that's true to what I like about Carol 4.0. When I first saw it, I thought the scene didn't ring true to me. That, first of all, they've got this longevity. And for some reason, I always refer to this one group. You remember Lost? Yep. Everybody remembers Lost. Well, so I always refer to this core group as like the tailies, right? Because then at like season, 3.5 or whatever, when it just takes floors the accelerator off the crazy bridge, and then they meet like the rest of the plane. These guys are like the tailies. These are your core group. And it was just kind of like, all right, here's your bag. You'll do well on your own. And she says maybe, gets in the car and drives off. And I was like, really? That's all you get? I mean, Carol realizing that, she's got... I mean, if I was Carol, I'd been like, yeah, but my stuff's at the prison. I've got magazines.
That's the point. She doesn't need any stuff anymore, and she doesn't need any people in her life anymore. Nothing that she cares about, and I think that's what was so poignant about
except
that.
Lizzie and
except when Lizzie tells her, mistakenly says, "Mom," she shuts her right down, man, because she's like. Hey,
well, she does, but remember at the end, right? But remember at the end,
she wants
when she asks about, But
right?
she asks about Lizzie and the other girl. What's the other girl's name? And Rick's just like, well, yeah, we'll take care of it. We're going to let you have them,
right?
I don't know. It's so.
Well, I think the one thing I in response to this sequence you're talking about, what do you make of the handoff of the watch? Because that's the only thing that. And again, what did you think of that?
That's a good question. I actually hadn't. I was so involved with everything that came before it that.
Well, I think it adds to what I'm saying here about the fact that she's so detached, and that the watch. She asks about the kids and what's going to happen to them, because that's kind of the only thing she's really got any concern for at the prison anymore. And then she hands this watch to him, and it was lots of different things going on there, but it was her ex-husband's watch, or her deceased husband's watch, the abusive husband.
So she's completely divested herself of her past.
Yes.
She's free of her past.
She's free of her past. She's free of her connections to people. She's, this is kind of the last little piece of Karen point 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And she's like getting rid of it. And if you're going to send me out here on my own, then I'm going to really be on my own. And here's the thing. And that's kind of what I took from it. It was also kind of weird though, because there was a lot of references to the fact that he gave his watch to the guy, and maybe she was kind of being kind of critical of him, saying you were being sentimental giving him that watch. You know what I mean? It's like you care too much about people. You try to do too many civil things. That's stupid. In an apocalypse, you should just freaking keep moving.
Well, again, that ties into the argument that she's a realist and he's just in some fantasy world. I did like that line though when she said, "All right, we need to move," and she gets up and she says, "It was a nice watch." I like that.
Yeah.
And I just got to call him out. That's the writer was Matthew Negrete. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. And this is actually his only episode of Walking Dead that he's written. Before this, he's written an episode of Graceland. He's done a bunch of episodes of White Collar, and I went back a little bit. He did a few episodes of Power Rangers RPM, by the way. But anyway, so it's useless trivia there for anybody listening. But so this was his and I'm always fascinated reading about the new writers that they have, just to see how the writing changes when you get a new writer. This is the third different writer in 4 episodes.
Yeah, we had Gimple started off. I think the second episode was it Kirkman?
I think, he did the second or the third one.
No, there was a woman that wrote the second.
Oh, you're right. So this is our fourth different writer.
Then Kirkman. Yeah, I think that the Carol storyline, the Carol Rick storyline, which was the main arc, was really well written. I didn't feel that the other arc going on with the other group was as well done as that.
I agree. Absolutely.
And I would even say that this 4th episode is probably my least favorite of this season 4 so far, and that I think it had some problems in that other arc. And all
right, so let's go over. Let's start talking about that other arc.
Okay.
So as we said, this is Daryl. This is Team Daryl. Daryl, Michonne, Tyrese, and Bob, and they've escape from the herd. They come to this small town, a little gas station, and they're looking to secure a ride. And we learn some things about Bob and Tyrese in their section of this episode.
Right.
Namely, that Tyrese is he's running a couple French fries short of a Happy Meal there. I mean, can you blame him though?
Yeah. No, he's just lost it.
So leading up into this, as we get to this, they're walking along before they get to this town, and there was a moment when, again, we talked about last episode about how there's a little bit of flirty going on between Michonne and Daryl.
That was continued.
There wasn't a little bit this time. I mean, that was just overt. Daryl leans down, picks up a rock, a piece of jasper, and he says that a woman, someone back at he picks it up and he kind of cleans it off. She says, "What's that, jasper?" And he says, "Yeah." And she said, "It brings out the green in your eyes," and then gives him like a little smile. And I didn't know. It was one of those where I was kind of confused with myself. Did I think that was cute or creepy? I don't know if I want these two together. I love Michonne. I love Daryl, but I don't know. But Michonne and Daryl is less creepy than Carol and Daryl. So
yeah. Agreed. No,
but,
I think it's very, given the way that the two characters have been portrayed up to this point, I think it's a natural for them to kind of be attracted to each other. You know, they both have kind of similar approaches to the life. You know, they're very matter of fact. You know, and in great contrast, you know, I think that they both make tough decisions, just like we're talking about with Carol. But yet there's a sense of humanity to both of them. Michonne a little less last season, certainly much more this season.
Right.
But, you know, when she kills the governor, Penny, in front of the governor, that lacked a certain amount of humanity. Not especially considering he hadn't done anything too dramatic. I mean, he had been horrible, but he hadn't, you know, not like in the comic, you know. But in the comic, it was, you know, then all of her actions were justified based on what had happened to her. But
well, maybe the flirty unnerves me a little bit.
Daryl's always had a very humanistic kind of approach. You know, he's very much about, you know, doing the right thing and people's feelings, and, you know, he comes off as this hard ass, but
he's Han Solo.
Just like he says to Bob when Bob tells him that whole story about the, you know, back in the first episode and then leading to Zach's death. You know, he gets all done. He's like, that's bullshit. You know?
Right.
Which is basically, it's a macho way of kind of saying, dude, you know, don't blame yourself, man. Relax. You know what I mean? It wasn't your fault. I mean, that could have happened to anybody, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's not a big deal, you know? And so I see them as an interesting juxtaposition to Carol.
Well, it's funny that, Michonne makes that little flirty comment to Daryl, and Daryl kind of shuts her down when she's like, you know, everybody back at the prison, and he's like, well, if you hang around a little bit, you pick up a few things.
That was good.
So then they get to the town, they get to the gas station, and they've got to clear away some vegetation around that car,
right?
And Tyrese, he goes all P90X on the vines, just wailing away, and everybody just looks at him like, dude, pace yourself, slow down a little bit.
I know.
And of course, you know, some walkers come out, and just as an aside, I thought it was interesting how we're so used to calling them walkers within the Walking Dead universe, but yet when they meet the two kids call them skin eaters.
Yeah. That was great. And, you know, I was talking to a friend and about, you know, it aggravated me that they don't say zombies, and that the comic doesn't say zombies. And I guess he pointed me to the direction of an article about, I guess Kirkman has always said that in this universe there isn't the zombie culture. There was no Night of the Living Dead movies. There was no there was no experience with this in the culture, so that when zombies happened, it was all completely brand new to these people in this particular alternate universe, and therefore they had to come up with their own names. They didn't have you know, a cultural name for them the way that we do. You know, if I were to see somebody walking who I thought was dead, I would immediately call them a zombie now. But that's because of the way I've been brought up with zombies in everything, TV, movies, and everything else. So he's saying that he always took the position that they didn't exist in that culture, so they come up with other names. I don't understand the rationale for that, but maybe he just wanted to make it different somehow.
Yeah, apparently Haiti doesn't exist in Kirkman's universe.
Kirkman's world, yeah.
Okay, so they clear away the vegetation. What did you make of the zombies that come out, the walkers that come out, and freed by Tyrese's exuberance in part? And the one that jumps at Tyrese and Michonne yells at him, let's let him go. And he's still hanging on to this thing and pulls the thing out, and it lands on him. And, you know, of course they take care of him, but, I don't know. You think Tyrese is sporting, he's running the borderline with a death wish?
Oh, I think they were trying. Yeah, and she even says to him in a later part, she's like,
right.
What the hell were you thinking? You know, is that, you know, you could get yourself killed. Is that what you want to do? And I think that conversation with her kind of starts him to think about, Because then he barks back at her. Well, what about you and the governor? And you're chasing after the governor. She's like, you got to let go of your anger. And he's like, well, you got to let go of your anger. But I think the two of them both.
Well, you're fat. No, you're fat. Well, you're ugly. Right. Well, no, you're ugly.
I think they both, in that conversation, as a result of that conversation, they both kind of had started to think twice about, their approach to their anger. And of course, then we see Michonne, say that she's going to stop chasing the governor. And I think we start to see Tyrese start to get more focused and on board with the mission and what they're trying to do, and not be a distraction or not be a, potential hack from that point.
And I would think that, that Tyrese wouldn't, I don't know.
I think zombie
the Death Witch
was a metaphor.
Well, right, but
he's shaking this thing. He won't let go of this anger. You know what I mean?
And I get that. Remember, we saw last episode where he was sitting in the car, and he stayed in the car until basically the car was overrun. Right. And then, so this week he's got the zombie stays until the last possible moment with this zombie. And I don't know. I just don't. The thing that I don't buy with the Death Wish, and yeah, there's a struggle of some sort in there, but the why I don't figure out is because he's got Sasha back in the prison. And she's his.
But they kind of dealt with that when he's down at the water and he's cleaning off the freaking guts from the previous episode off of his shirt.
Right.
And he's basically ignoring everybody. They're all like, "Come on, let's go, let's go."
Yep.
And he's basically like, "Fuck you guys," you know what I mean? And and then he says, he says at that point to Bob, I think, that Sasha's back there, and now they're late because of this whole thing, and she's probably dead. So in his mind, he's like not, he's convinced he's lost her already. He's lost Karen. He's lost, anything that he cares about. So he's like, what's the fucking point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where he's at, and I think he starts to calm down after he has that talk with Michonne. But interesting, because it's such a graphic picture of it, but interesting observation. Lots of letting go as a theme in this episode. Michonne lets go of the governor. Bob can't let go of the booze.
Yeah.
Daryl then emotionally lets go of Bob because of the booze. Tyrese won't let go of the zombie, which is like his inability to let go of his anger about the situation with Karen. Rick lets go of Carol. Carol lets go of the guy Sam, which they had met, when she tells Rick they should just go. Right. I mean, it's just lots of letting go, It was an interesting overall theme throughout the whole episode, I thought. I loved Daryl's line when he goes up to the window and then all of a sudden the zombie on the inside, which is just a shadow, which is like very comic booky, bangs on the window and he steps back a little bit and he goes, well, we got some friends inside. You don't get a lot of comedy in this show, but I thought that was funny.
Well, I thought, so when they go inside this gas station, and they're looking for a battery for the car, and as they're checking it all out, Daryl notices vomit on the floor, and it leads up to a bottle of antifreeze, and it was a suicide pact that a couple of people had, and I just thought, do you see Daryl's disdain for that when Bob's like, well, what's wrong with that? They wanted to die together, and Daryl's like, well, yeah, if it works, then it was just, I just thought it was interesting, his just like, disgust for it. But then they see the zombie laying on the floor, crushed under something. It looked like a ceiling fan, maybe. Did you see how he got taken out?
Yeah, with the
bathroom key.
In fact, that's my, that's tied in my zombie kill of the week. No, with just the zombie of the week. I thought that zombie itself, again, was a very pathetic. Yep. And it was a very pathetic, sad treatment of the zombies in that sequence. Because here you're seeing the zombie that tried to kill himself, which is very sad. And then it got stuck. He can't even move. He looked pathetic. He seemed disinterested in them even being, there. And then the way he gets taken out is with the key to the men's room sticking out of his head. It was a great sequence. Did you notice on the wall? Bob looks on the wall and there's pictures there. I'm pretty sure Sam is one of the guys in the picture.
I thought the same thing. Yeah. I thought that was Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Sam. I didn't see the girl. She may have been there, but I didn't recognize her. But yeah, definitely think that was Sam.
All right, so we pretty much hit a lot of topics here, so let's go through our usual retinue of what was your good of the episode?
Well, basically, we've hit on it all. I think the continuing great character development and of the many different characters simultaneously. I'm really enjoying that. There's a lot of different storylines in the show, and if they just last season they sometimes would just focus on the governor and Andrea for a whole episode, basically. And if you didn't like that storyline, you were screwed. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, you get Daryl and Michonne, you're getting Bob and Daryl, you're getting Tyrese and all of his stuff. You're getting Rick and Carol and you get the new people. So I really like how they're continuing to do that. Also the moving of the story, every episode, the story has moved a serious chunk. There hasn't been any real pause or filler,
Right.
If he had come back with her, this episode might have, for me, been like a filler. But by him not bringing her back, it was like, that was such a big, huge decision, right or wrong, good or bad, it's massive, and the impact on the whole story is just massive, I think. And so I really liked that. And I liked that there was no good, clean answers. I mean, the fact that you could feel the way you do, in support of Carol, and I felt the way I did about the fact that, he's trying to do something that's maybe more, I don't know, I guess protecting his own family. I don't know. I guess he's kind of selfish too. But anyway, there's no clean answers. I mean, what he feels about telling everybody is understandable, I think. What she did, I think you can make a good case for, So, and I like when shows leave you in a position where you can't. It's hard to pick a side.
Right.
Yeah,
any show that you're discussing on a Monday morning with such emotion and enthusiasm, that's some good writing.
So what about you? What was your good?
I agree with that. I pretty much chalked it up to the writing that it keeps going. I agree with something you had said earlier. This is the weakest for me, the weakest of the 4 episodes. But for the most part, it's the writing. And I think it was actually kind of tied with the strength that Carol showed. Yeah. I like that. One thing that bothers me with the show, and it bothers me with the comic book, and I think it actually happens less in the comic book than it happens in the show. And I get that it's the paradigm of everything, but it's still, I still don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Is the complete apathy that these characters have when you meet somebody new out in the world. So you're at this house and you meet these kids. These kids have been hiding in the bathroom because they knew there was a skin eater somewhere else in the house. Right. And Rick is just, you'd think you meet new people. Holy cow. Hey, how'd you guys survive? What have you been doing? And Rick is everybody's always standoffish with new people. And there's, and I think that, I might contradict myself here because I think that it's interesting in that it shows how humanity has become just as bad as the walkers themselves. Like they're just as they've devolved as much as the zombies have.
Right.
But it always annoys me that there's and you get these kids that are like, hey, so where are you from? You guys look like you're well fed. Where are you kind of at? And they're not immediately coming out and saying, hey, can we hitch up with your wagon? They're kind of, intimating that, and they get nothing in return for it. So that's just one of the things that just, I don't know. It always annoys me.
I think that, given their experience with Woodbury, given their experience last 2 seasons ago with, the guys that they meet in that one town, and then they have to shoot out in the OK Corral there in the bar, and I just think that they now realize that, and that's why he has his test. As we got the beginning of the questions again, how many of you killed?
Right.
Got the magic questions again. So, there's this distrust of anybody that has survived because they know what you have to do to survive in this world. and that sometimes you have to kill a lot of walkers, and sometimes you have to kill humans, and therefore, that becomes a concern anytime you meet somebody, because for them to be still alive, they had to have done some of those. Chances are they've done both.
But again, this is also Rick, and I get like you said, in that scene, Carol's the one who offers that, hey, you can help us clean out all these houses and find stuff. Again, when Rick meets new people, he's already making a decision that, no, they can't come with us. You're not part of our group. And again, it's how does he get to make that decision? This is a young kid. It's not like they found like an old guy, or they found that guy with the, what was the guy's name with the gun who was couldn't bring himself to shoot his wife, who was a zombie. What was that? The Clear episode, I think.
Yeah. Morgan.
This is a young kid. You would think that if you're you're building a population, say at the prison, or you're building your group. This kid's young. He's strong. He's able. I don't know. It's short-sighted not to bring them in.
Well, he does bring them in. He does offer to bring them in. He does make that decision.
After Carol makes that step out for him.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, all she did was they'd already made the decision to let them come. She suggests that because they're getting ready to book out to go look at houses, she says, he says, you guys stay here and wait for us. And she's like, nah, you guys could go look at other houses. You could be useful. Like I said, I thought it was funny though that they that ends up being a bad decision for them. But I think that at that point he had already made the decision, and I think they'd already had the conversation up in the bedroom where he's like, do you think I made the right call bringing them back? And she's like, yeah, I mean, they might be useful. She seems kind of, again, indifferent. She said both points. They could be this, it could be that. But yeah, I think ultimately it's probably the best thing to do. I don't think she really cared. You know what I mean? Right. I don't think she really cared. And so I'm not. I don't. If I was in that position, I would be wary of anybody I met that I didn't know or that wasn't brought to me by somebody I know. I would be completely distrusting of anybody and everything. So I don't find that. I didn't find that as unrealistic.
See, that doesn't. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people who have that opinion. And it's really surprising that I'm taking the more liberal stance in this discussion. But for people who know me, you'll understand why. But I don't know. I think that bodes ill for humanity that we have even in a situation like that. And in a lot of these situations, there's just no sense of community within humanity anymore.
Right. Which is what part of the attraction of the whole show, which is that, what happens when the structure of society is broken or breaks down. And I think, to continue a political theme, I think part of, why these kinds of tropes, or not tropes really, but story ideas and storylines have become so popular in fiction as well as in movies and in television now, is because people feel like a lot of stuff is broken. The government's broken, the planet is broken. Our ability to affect any change seems to be broken. And I think it terrifies people, and this starts to show itself culturally. So, I think the show is really playing with that issue. What happens when all the rules and regulations break down? You're going to get people who are going to continue to try and live their life by some semblance of right and wrong, and do good by people as much as they can, and then you get other people who are going to say, hey, I can be a king in this world, or I'm not taking any prisoners, and I'm going to be out on my own, and you get the governor, and you get people like in the comic book Negan and stuff like that, and I think that that's the quandary. Which way do you go?
Fair enough. All right, so what's your bad for the episode?
Well, we talked. I thought, in the first half of the episode was a little bit too much talking, not enough showing. Which is one of my biggest praises for this season.
Right.
I felt that a lot of the whole Bob Darrell booze thing was very kind of contrived. I just did not like the sequence where he just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, voluntarily starts, telling Darrell about his alcohol abuse problem, that it was his fault for bringing the big spot down on top of Zach, and it just seemed like it was unprovoked and unrealistic that he would just. And then again, it was just describing. Right. I thought, but then it became clear why they did that, and they did that so that they would have some emotional resonance when he goes to save the bottle that falls down with the zombies and almost jeopardizes the entire journey. It almost jeopardizes his life, and he won't let go.
Yeah.
So and I think for Darrell it was like, here you are telling me that you think you killed this guy because of your drinking problem, and how horrible you feel about it, but then you're going to turn around an hour later and basically almost do the exact same thing.
Right.
And I have no time for you. It's basically what when Darrell comes over and shoves his face in his face, he's basically saying, I'm done with you. I got no time for you if this is what you're going to be like. You know what I mean? So anyway, that storyline felt a little contrived, just so that they could get in that kind of a little bit more about Bob and what a loose cannon he could be and how potentially problematic he's going to be. So I'd say that was that was really my biggest problem with the episode. It was a little bit too much talking, not enough showy in the beginning, except for obviously the opening, and then the whole Bob Darrell thing. Although
the Bob.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I just think that his defining himself as a witness to the downfall of the two previous groups was excellent foreshadowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Almost maybe a little heavy-handed, but still, I thought it was excellent. I thought, this guy is where this guy goes, trouble leads.
Right.
Trouble follows. Sorry. Go ahead,
well,
sorry.
I didn't. My bad is twofold again. Bob and his booze, and I didn't care for the little conversation that seemed to be shoehorned in when Carol and Rick were picking tomatoes in the backyard.
Yeah, the pancakes.
Yeah, that was
cringed,
especially that.
Yeah, I cringed a little bit. Except when I thought about it later, I cringed when I heard, I guess she wanted us to be the family that had pancakes on Sunday, but he's being sentimental still,
right?
And
that's part of the
right, and that's part of the story was about the difference between the two, and she's not. She's done with sentimentality. She's done with it, and he's still hanging on to it. And whether it's right or wrong, it's an interesting and I think realistic portrayal of how different people would handle the situation. But yeah, it was a little cringeworthy. I agree.
All right, now you're ugly, which I think.
Well, the ugly we went over. Ugly was the whole Carol banishing thing, which I thought was was really, really awesome. Not so much because I agreed with it, Rick. If anything, I think that he's making a huge mistake. But it's what I also love about the book. Rick in the book as well is, he makes tons of bad decisions and sets up horrendous plot lines that, rain down all sorts of crap on top of the people surrounding him, and yet, and some of them choose to leave him and some of them stay with him. But this is another one. I think you can make a case for why it was a good decision. You can make a case for why what Carol did was a good decision. But either way you go, the fact that she's not coming back with him is going to be a huge impact on the show. huge impact on the rest of the people back there. So I just thought the whole sequence with them as a story arc, I thought was well done.
I'm going to take the same thing, but I'm going on 180 degrees out for my reason. I thought it was absolutely asinine. So it's not a good ugly for me.
But you thought it was asinine because you think it's. Correct me if I'm wrong. You think it's asinine because it was an asinine decision for Rick to make.
I think it's unrealistic.
Or do you think it's an asinine thing for the show to do?
Yeah,
that's my.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't. It makes no sense. I mean, even the history the two characters have together, the world that they're living in. I mean, all of that is just, none of that is even considered. And I get that even if you're the biggest D-bag out there that Rick has the capacity to be, you still don't. That's not something that he would do to Carol. She should be brought before the court, before the council, and they make the decision. Right. He's casting her out on her own, and I just think I think it's ludicrous, and it doesn't. I don't think it rings true with. Look, we've described a Rick who's idealistic, who's looking for the Zen in all the wrong places, and he's right. doing all these things to. He's holding on to these shreds of humanity. That was not an act of humanity on his part. Hey, you're on your own. See ya, I'm making that decision myself. That wasn't an act of humanity. So he's, as much as they've set up what Rick's character would do, and I totally believe that they'd come back and he'd rat her out. Oh yeah, guess what I found out? And, deal with it. He would be if anything, there's an old issue of Justice League of America back in the 80s, towards the end of Carmine Infantino's Flash run, when Flash kills Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. And Flash is part of the Justice League at the time, and he goes before the Justice League, and they're going to vote yay or nay whether he stays in the league. And three people the cover has three people with their thumbs up, you can stay, we've killed before, and it's no big deal, and three people with their thumbs down. Superman has the deciding vote. So of course he says, and folks, this issue came out 20-something years ago, 30 years ago, so I'm not spoiling anything. And Superman comes out, and besides, that Flash is dead. That's not a spoiler either.
I didn't know.
I don't read Superman cast the deciding vote, and the Flash is out of the Justice League. And I felt like that's how this would have gone down. That they go to the council, and it's 3 up and 3 down, or 2 up and 2 down, whatever, in an inning. It's an inning of baseball, and Rick has the deciding vote. And that I can see. Then there's, tearful farewells and blah, blah, blah. And it's an emotional episode. And, maybe we get Bear McCreary back on the music, or Michael Giacchino from Lost. And it's, there's not a dry eye watching this. Not this. It portends well for great, you and I talked about possible scenarios for what comes in the rest of the season. And right. It definitely sets up stuff like that. But I don't know. For me, it didn't work for me.
Okay. I think it's also cool that this, how they're always trying to come up with ways to make the zombies a threat and make it different, so it's not the same kind of zombie challenge each time and blah, blah, blah. It seems like they're also starting to kind of, not even starting. It really started last time, but they're trying to come up with challenging ways to have characters, of the living be removed from the story. You know what I mean? This is kind of the first time we've had this kind of banishment type thing, as opposed to, a character dying,
right.
from a zombie attack, or in Karen's case, a murder or whatever. So, just a again, a little thing in terms of support for it. But I can certainly understand your point of view on that. I can see how, and I'm sure there will be people out there who agree with you on that. But I thought it was a good solution for the story. I don't agree that it was the right thing for him to do, but he makes bad decisions all the time. And part of what's fun is just not fun, but part of the enjoyment of the show is watching what happens when these bad decisions are made. Couple of other. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we get to the. Our characters and kills of the week.
Yeah, I got a few points I want to make before we do that, because regarding the story. Did you notice the gas price sign at the station?
It was like $3.77, wasn't it?
It was upside down, and it spelled out the word hell.
Ah.
If you go back, you'll see that it's pretty cool. We talked about the picture looked like the guy Sam. So, here's I got a criticism, not a criticism, but I guess it's a criticism. Being a dog lover that I am, it's becoming kind of, and I don't know where this came from in the episode. There was no reason for me to think of this, but there's no dogs in this world. Now, the reality is that if all of a sudden human beings were in chaos and most of them died and the zombies and everything else, dogs would be roaming in packs. You know what I mean?
Well, look at Detroit.
Exactly.
Oh, seriously. I mean, nobody lives up there, and they've got, herds of right. dogs running around. So you got a point.
And, humans have also domesticated dogs since the beginning. I can't imagine people wouldn't want dogs to be part of the equation. They're fantastic for guarding. They're fantastic for, if they hear noises, alarm people and defending and I just it kind of is as well for companionship. So I think it's a big miss for them to not introduce a character who has a dog with them or have them pick up a dog or whatever. I think that would be cool. And then on the other side, it'd be
Internet trolls. Walking Dead hates dogs.
That's right. Walking Dead hates dogs. It'd be cool if they encountered a pack of rabid dogs. So, in terms of a potential threat, like they go into a town and it's just like owned by this huge pack of rabid dogs.
Dogs on one side, walkers on the other. Yeah. Carol on the third and the governor on the fourth.
People are probably like, what the hell is this? I want to hear about zombies. He's talking about dogs. Okay, that's it for the show. So you want to get into our weeklies?
So let's do our weeklies, and then you've got a couple news items, and that'll do it for the week. So we're kind of bereft of zombies this week. Some noticeable ones. But my kill of the week is got to be bathroom key to the head.
Yeah, that was awesome. My zombie of the week is a tie between the gas station owner who ends up with the men's room key, and because he was just so pathetic. But then the other classic zombie in this one for me was the poor girl zombie who falls down the stairs.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Then just does a diving header down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs gets a knife in the head.
Help! I've fallen. I can't get up. Zombie.
I know, she was so pathetic. Again, so zombie of the week, that was me. Zombie kill of the week is Michonne's decapitation of the head of the zombie that I think is Tyrese is holding on to.
Yeah.
Is that right? Basically, she's like, let go, and he won't. So she's like, all right, screw it. And she puts her katana right in front of his face and chops that head off that zombie. Yeah. That was awesome. That
was a good one.
I guess it was after he fell, right? He fell on the ground.
He's on the ground, yeah.
Right. Either way, she still did it while he was on top of her. I thought that was wild. All right, what about your character of the week?
My character of the week... I gotta go with Carol. I like Carol. I thought she was again just really strong throughout the episode. I liked her in that beginning sequence when she's talking with Lizzie and her whole thing about one day you change. We all change. For me, she's the voice of reason that just can't get through to Rick. I think Rick is living in some fantasy world, and at some point he's got to look. We're seeing it happen with Tyrese. Tyrese is, he kind of had that fantasy. He kept trying to,
So let me ask you a question. So do you think it's completely okay that she offed those two people who were quarantined and really no direct threat at that time? Whatever threat they had posed had already been exposed. You know what I mean? They'd already exposed people to, but now they're quarantined. No one's getting near them.
No, I don't think that what she did was again. You don't act unilaterally in this world,
right? So she she essentially murdered two people because she thought, regardless of the fact that she did it because she thought it was the right thing to do, or that it was same thing that happens with war crimes, but sometimes, people doing them sometimes think they're doing it for the right reason, but that doesn't mean it's not a crime, I mean, how is that making a good decision.
Well, okay. It's not black and white. We don't live in
Right.
The Walking Dead is not a black and white world. This is a complete, it takes the entire paradigm and throws it off kilter. So it's one of those things where, as we've talked about for most of this episode, there's two ways that you could look at it, and each side has valid points. So she needs to get judged by a jury of her peers. There are circumstances involved here. She has a past. I mean, she lost her daughter, the stuff that she's been exposed to over 3.5 years, the person that she's become in season 4, she had valid reasons. And I think that it's that Justice League moment. It's that here it is. Who's with me? Who's against me?
But you see, I think for me, if I was in that environment, and I was the only one to find out, I would think that Carol was no longer the Carol that I knew, because I would see that as murder, and unnecessary murder that was taken on by herself without checking with anybody else. And stop
right there. Okay. Stop right there.
Yep.
Taken on without advisement of anybody else. Okay. So Rick, even though we're going with the argument that she has the capacity to defend herself in this new world, she's basically on her own. What she did to them, Rick is no better than her by basically casting her out.
I don't agree. I mean, I think he's making the wrong decision also by not consulting the group. Absolutely agree with you on that, just like she did. But she is in a much better position to survive, and he does help to try and set her up for that. And she's pretty convinced, too, that she's going to survive. It's a horrible thing that he does, and it definitely hurts her odds, but he doesn't put a bullet in her.
Okay.
And I see that as a big difference between, she went and put a bullet, basically, in those two people. And, my guess is that they're going to go try and get her or come bring her back or whatever. So, I don't know. I do see a difference between how they approached that. Definitely didn't consult with the group. Both of them made a big mistake there. His decision to banish her, not on the same level as murdering the two people, but that's just me. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
But
so who's your character?
Same person. I think that, and basically because, it just has been an amazing development of her character, and I think I found her as an actress too in that episode just captivating to watch. I personally feel that what we're watching is this person become a sociopath to some degree, detached from her emotions, having no empathy really for anybody else, being indifferent to anybody else, obsessed with her own feeling of need to survive. But still, it was well done by her, well portrayed, and it was captivating to watch.
Yeah.
So I thought she was great.
All right, and then since I have my own little category of the red shirt of the week, it was either going to be Sam, or I believe her character name was Anna. It was going to be one of the newbies. I think that was Sam was far too much surfer dude for me to
yeah, a little bright and cheery.
Except that he would
for that. There was a Lenny, our friend Lenny, sent me a email with a Wikipedia link that goes. There's a Walking Dead Wikipedia timeline for the television show, and it puts the events that we're watching now at day 552 into the apocalypse. And it's like, I agree with you. Over 550 days into the apocalypse, to be as cheery as she was, that was a little odd. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, somebody was going down there.
Yeah, she didn't deserve to go the way she did, though. She's just a big
no. That was awful.
Yeah, that was gruesome.
All right, so you got a couple news items.
Yeah, a couple news items, a couple little things. I think I'll save to next week. I'm going to start trying to make a recommendation to the listeners for something in the zombie genre, whether it be a book or a movie or a TV show or some other type of, artistic representation of zombies. But
Girl and the Four Tigers.
So next week I'll hit on that. This week, let's see, in the news, there was an article, there was an interview with George Romero. I think I saw that it was at Uproxx, UPROXX. And I guess the Walking Dead show had asked him, I don't know what season it took place in, but they had asked him, for those of you who don't know, George Romero is considered kind of the father of the modern day zombie genre with his directorial and I believe wrote also Night of the Living Dead, but then went on to create Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, and a few other not as interesting zombie movies after that, but those three were pretty powerful in their day. So anyway, George Romero rejected The Walking Dead to offer to do some episodes. He was asked, and he was quoted as saying, "They asked me to do a couple of episodes of The Walking Dead, but I didn't want to be a part of it." Romero told The Big Issue, "Basically, it's just a soap opera with a zombie occasionally. I always used the zombie as a character for satire or political criticism, and I find that missing in what's happening now." So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. It's kind of hypocritical a little bit because it seems like he's saying, he didn't want to do it because it's not enough zombies. It's all about the people. But yet, if you go back and watch Night of the Living Dead, especially
that was the crux of that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was about the people and the infighting and the dynamics of the humans, not the zombies.
Right.
So that's. I'm guessing too, though, that this was probably around the second season, because if there was a season that was lacking in zombies and mostly people talking, it was season 2.
Yeah,
which was pretty bad.
Right.
I just came across. We mentioned earlier, I came across from Screen Rant an article with an interview from the creator of Sons of Anarchy, who was Kurt Sutter, I think he was a big friend of Glenn Mazzara, who was the previous showrunner. And this is from back in February of this year. And it was just funny, and I just thought it was because he goes on a tirade. Some of you might remember he did a bunch of Twitter tweets banging the whole decision that AMC made with moving away from Glenn Mazzara and all this kind of stuff, and he went on a kind of a tirade about how the show was going to suck, and he was basically saying that was going to be the end of the show, right? Earlier in the video, Chris was pointing directly at Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman. Apparently, Suter doesn't believe that Kirkman has the necessary skills to manage a television series successfully. Quote, "The process of show running and vision is not something everyone can do. You have to have somebody who understands the process of making a television show weekly after week. Robert is an amazing visual artist." By the way, he's a writer, not an artist. Who knows very little about TV. The reins keep going back to him in this process, and he doesn't know how to run a show. And it was his prediction that it would end up falling apart without someone like Mazzara. And I think it's clear that is not the case. That season 4 is heading towards being the best season yet. And if anything,
Sutter's on his Twitter right now going delete, 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 delete.
Well, if anything, too, it seems like maybe Kirkman. The more Kirkman is involved, the better, which wouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the gosh darn show is based on his comic, so right. You know what I mean? So to think that other people could interpret his work better. Is what made comic book movies suffer for so many years in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Right. That somehow Hollywood knew how to do it better than people from the comic book industry. The last thing I had is spoilerish. So just since this is our last thing, you won't miss much if you quit now. It's with regards to the season.
But come back next week.
Yeah. It's in regard to the season finale. Let's see. I think I saw this at. It was in Wet Paint, which is a weird site, but it was linked to from
not at all porn.
IO9. Have you ever heard of Wet Paint?
No, but it sounds like a porno site.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I'd never either that or a hardware store.
Which for you is like, as an artist, that's research, right?
Oh, absolutely, reference, absolutely. All signs appear to be pointing to the mid-season finale recreating a major plot from the comic books. Wet Paint has done some great piece together, blah, 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 speculating that the mid-season finale will have the governor launching an attack on the prisoner. During filming in July, a tank was reported on set, as well as a huge explosion. Since the governor's attack in the comic book features a tank breaking down the fences, it is likely it was filmed. As to why it's thought to be appearing in episode 8, Andrew Lincoln described the episode this way. The mid-season, quote, the mid-season finale is the biggest thing we've attempted, I think, so far in our show. I think the crew and Ernest Dickerson, who directed it, everybody busted their guts to do that episode. Daryl Pritchett, who does the special effects, he's the man with the dynamite, was the busiest man I've ever seen. It was thrilling, just thrilling. It just felt like an incredibly exciting episode. And then in the final 8 of the season, it's like we're spinning out into orbit. And it's a completely new show. It's really, really exciting. Norman Reedus also teased the mid-season finale being explosive, saying, quote, I will say that we just wrapped the mid-season finale last night of The Walking Dead. Mind-blowing. Minds are going to be blown. It's so crazy. It's so good. We thought last season was real good. This season's crazy good. It's nuts. You'll love it. So the current speculation is that episode 8, the mid-season finale, will be the attack on the prison, and episode 9 will deal with the aftermath.
Ooh. So we're at so next week is episode 5. So you got 4.
So we're just about halfway. Yeah, 4 more to go. But I would be psyched if that's the case, because not because I don't want to necessarily, they've been doing such a great job with the prison. I wouldn't want to necessarily drag it out, but I was ready to leave the prison at the end of last season. And when they brought all the Woodbury over and they had the governor leave the way that he did, which it's a train wreck, if you ask me, killing all of his people and then running off with his 2 cohorts. It was just, I just thought that was just horrible. But, and then here we were.
He was Rick.
It was Rick. So, it felt like, well, they just want to, use this set that they've spent so much money on, and so they're going to continue the story, and yada, yada, yada. But this season has been so great, and with the addition of the flu thing and all that's going on there, and I just, to have it go mid-season and then break into a new direction as opposed to go a whole nother season, I think is great. I think that'd be ingenious. So if they do that, I think the ending of the season will be, in other words, if the mid-season is the famous attack by the governor, what do you think the season finale is going to be? I'm trying to think after that. Would it be the cannibals or something? Or I don't know.
I don't know. I got to go back and look at the comics, the trades, and refresh my memory on some of this stuff.
Well, I know they go out on the road. Isn't that when they meet Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know he's been they've casted him.
Well, the only thing that is a surety, the only thing you can predict is either season finale and with the first episode of the back half of the season when they come back off a hiatus is massive ratings. That's basically the only thing that you can.
Do you have numbers for what's been going on since? Do you have numbers?
You know what? I don't. I don't. Those numbers I won't get for a little bit. Yet, but I'll have them for next week.
I'll have them for next week. I wonder what last week's was. I wonder if the trend, because I remember they had a big dip the second day, but it was still higher than the previous season.
It was still second to NFL and
right.
And
it was
numbers.
like they did 16 on the season opener, and they did 13 on the second episode, and their best ever prior to that was 12. So they were still ahead of like their best ever prior to that. I'm wondering if that trend is continuing. So
probably,
yeah.
All right. Well, you've stuck with us this far. You've gone through yet another episode of Biters Podcast. You can download. You can find us on iTunes and on Facebook. And when you do, please leave reviews, or if you have any questions or comments. This is a great episode to leave comments on. If you think that I'm right in my feelings about Carol, leave a comment. If you think Kirk is right, just don't leave anything at all. And
So then when all the fact that nobody leaves any comments, I guess that means I'm right.
Oh, wait, I need to rethink that. Hold on.
Yeah, because I don't think we've gotten any comments yet on the Facebook page.
That's right. I don't think we have. People listening, we're asking for you to leave comments. So by all means, go and check out other podcasts on the Southgate Media Group. I'm also the co-host on the American Horror Story Disturbed podcast. I know they just started a new one for Star Wars and for The Killing as well. So check out that site on the Southgate Media Group website.
They've got a Doctor Who one now, too.
A Doctor Who, that's right.
Yeah, they do.
And
Cuckoo for Who, I think he calls it.
Yeah. So check us out. Check those out. Leave comments there as well. And if you want zombies in your comics, feel free to check out our website for Z-Girl and the Four Tigers at www.zgirl.org about a special ops team led by a female zombie, written by me and drawn by Kirk. And with that, we will see you next week for episode 5 called Internment. Have yourselves a great week, and we'll talk to you next weekend.
See you next weekend.